The church bells rang with hollow celebration as Nia Thompson stood frozen at the altar, her fingers twisting the cheap fabric of her borrowed wedding dress. Through the sheer veil covering her face, she could see Julian Bradford walking toward her with the expression of a man headed to his own execution. She had heard what he said last night. Every cruel word was burned into her memory. She hadn't meant to overhear. The hotel walls were thin, and Julian's voice had carried through the ventilation system into her small room next door. His best friend, someone named Gregory, had asked him if he was really going through with it. "I just need to get through this year," Julian had replied, his voice cold and dismissive. "Then I can pay her off and move on. Grandmother's will states I have to be married for 12 months to inherit. After that, this girl can take her money and disappear. I don't even care what she looks like. Desperate people don't get to be picky." Nia had pressed her hand over her mouth to keep from crying out. She had known this marriage was a business arrangement, but hearing the contempt in his voice had cut deeper than expected. Still, what choice did she have? Aunt Ruby was dying. Stage 4 cancer didn't care about pride or dignity. The treatments that might save her cost more than Nia could earn in 5 lifetimes working double shifts at the diner. When Patricia Bradford's lawyer had approached her 3 weeks ago with the offer, Nia had thought it was a joke. Marry Julian Bradford for 1 year, and receive enough money to cover all of Aunt Ruby's medical expenses, plus a settlement that would secure both their futures. The lawyer had been direct. Julian needed a wife to satisfy his grandmother's conditions for inheritance. Patricia Bradford had chosen Nia specifically, though the lawyer wouldn't say why. Nia had wanted to refuse. Every fiber of her being had screamed that this was wrong, that she should find another way. But Aunt Ruby had raised her after Mama died. Aunt Ruby had worked 3 jobs to keep Nia in school, had sacrificed everything so Nia could have a chance at a better life. How could Nia let her die when salvation was being offered? So she had agreed. She had signed the papers. And now she stood at this altar in a church filled with strangers, about to marry a man who thought she was beneath him. Julian reached the altar and stood beside her. He was tall, with dark hair and sharp features that would have been handsome if not for the ice in his blue eyes. He wore an expensive navy suit that probably cost more than Nia's entire apartment. He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her presence beyond a slight nod to the priest. The ceremony began. Nia's voice shook as she repeated the vows, words about love and honor that felt like lies on her tongue. Julian's voice was steady and emotionless, as if he were reading a grocery list rather than pledging his life to another person. "You may kiss the bride," the priest finally said. Julian turned to Nia for the first time. His hand reached for her veil and she saw his jaw tighten. This was it. The moment he would see her face clearly and confirm whatever low expectations he had. Nia wanted to run, to disappear, to be anywhere but here. The veil lifted. Julian's expression didn't change. He leaned in mechanically and pressed his lips to hers in a kiss so brief and cold it barely qualified as contact. Then he stepped back, took her hand in a grip that felt more like a restraint than affection, and turned to face the sparse crowd. Patricia Bradford sat in the front row, her silver hair perfectly styled, her eyes warm as she smiled at them. She was the only person who seemed genuinely happy. Beside her sat Julian's business associates, their faces carefully neutral. On Nia's side, Aunt Ruby sat in a wheelchair, too weak to stand but determined to be present. Her nurse, a kind woman named Beverly, sat beside her. That was it. That was the entire sum of people who cared whether Nia Thompson became Nia Bradford. The reception was held in a hotel ballroom. Someone had tried to make it festive with white flowers and candles, but the room felt cold and empty. Nia sat at the head table beside Julian, who immediately pulled out his phone and began typing, not even pretending to pay attention to her. Patricia approached with a glass of champagne for each of them. "To new beginnings," she said, her voice gentle but firm. Julian took his glass without looking up. Nia accepted hers with both hands, grateful for something to hold. "Thank you," Nia said quietly. "For everything." Patricia studied her for a long moment, and Nia saw something shift in the older woman's eyes. "I knew your mother," Patricia said. Nia nearly dropped her glass. "What?" "We'll talk soon," Patricia promised, patting Nia's hand. "But know this, child. I didn't choose you randomly. I chose you because you deserve better than what life has given you. This marriage may have started as a business arrangement, but I believe it can become something more. Give it time. Give Julian time. He's not as cold as he pretends to be." Before Nia could respond, Patricia moved away to speak with other guests. Nia turned to Julian, wanting to ask what his grandmother meant, but he was already standing. "We're leaving in 20 minutes, he said curtly. The car will take us to my penthouse. You should say goodbye to your aunt. He walked away without waiting for a response. Nia found Aunt Ruby near the back of the room. Beverly had positioned the wheelchair by a window where Ruby could look out at the city. "Baby girl," Ruby said, reaching for Nia's hand. Her grip was weak, her skin paper-thin. "You look beautiful." "Aunt Ruby, I don't know if I can do this," Nia whispered, kneeling beside the wheelchair. "You can," Ruby said firmly. "You're stronger than you know. Your mama was strong too. She survived things that would have broken other people. You have her strength in you." "I wish she was here," Nia said, tears threatening. "She is," Ruby assured her. "Every time you sing, every time you show kindness to someone who doesn't deserve it, she's there. Don't let this man's coldness make you cold too. Keep your heart open. Keep being the girl who feeds stray cats and volunteers at the hospital and believes people can change." "What if he never changes?" Nia asked. "Then you'll still be you," Ruby said simply. "That's enough. That's always been enough." They held each other until Beverly gently reminded them it was time to go. Ruby needed her medication and rest. Nia kissed her aunt's forehead and promised to visit soon. Julian was waiting by the car, his face impassive. He opened the door for her, a gesture that might have seemed polite if not for the way he avoided touching her. The drive to his penthouse was silent. Nia watched the city pass by, the lights blurring through her unshed tears. The penthouse was on the 40th floor of a glass tower overlooking the river. It was all clean lines and expensive furniture, the kind of place that belonged in a magazine rather than real life. Everything was white or gray or black. There was no color, no warmth, no indication that actual humans lived here. "Your room is down that hall," Julian said, pointing. "Second door on the left. Your things have already been delivered. The kitchen is fully stocked. My housekeeper comes 3 times a week. Her name is Gloria. If you need anything, ask her." "Okay," Nia said softly. Julian pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "This is the contract we discussed. It outlines the terms of our arrangement. Separate bedrooms. No emotional attachment. Minimal public appearances together. After 1 year we file for divorce and you receive your settlement. Sign it and leave it on the kitchen counter." He handed her the envelope and walked toward the opposite hallway without saying goodnight. Nia stood alone in the massive living room, the envelope heavy in her hands. She wanted to cry, to scream, to tear up the papers and run back to her tiny apartment. But Aunt Ruby's face appeared in her mind. Aunt Ruby who had given up everything for her. Aunt Ruby who was fighting for every breath. Nia opened the envelope and read through the contract. It was exactly as Julian described. Clinical. Businesslike. A transaction disguised as a marriage. At the bottom was a line for her signature. She found a pen in her purse and signed her name. Nia Bradford. The letters looked strange, like they belonged to someone else. She left the contract on the counter as instructed and found her way to the bedroom Julian had indicated. It was large and impersonal, like a hotel room. Her 2 suitcases sat by the closet, containing everything she owned in the world. Nia changed into her nightgown and sat on the edge of the bed. Through the window she could see the city stretched out below, millions of lights representing millions of lives. People who were probably happier than she was right now. People who had married for love instead of desperation. The grief and fear she had been holding back all day finally overwhelmed her. Nia covered her mouth with her hand and cried silently, her shoulders shaking. She cried for the fairy tale wedding she would never have. She cried for her dying aunt. She cried for her dead mother. She cried for the girl she used to be, the one who believed in true love and happy endings. But even as she cried, a small voice in the back of her mind reminded her of something Aunt Ruby had said. "Keep your heart open. Keep being kind. Don't let his coldness make you cold too." Tomorrow would be the first full day of her new life. Tomorrow she would begin to figure out how to survive this year with her dignity intact. Tomorrow she would be stronger. But tonight, alone in this cold, expensive room, Nia Thompson Bradford let herself grieve for everything she had lost and everything she would never have. Can you imagine being trapped in a marriage where your own husband thinks you're not good enough? If you believe kindness and hope can change even the coldest heart, subscribe and comment below with your thoughts on Nia's situation. Should she have refused the money and found another way? The morning sun was too bright. Nia woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was. Then reality crashed back. The penthouse. The marriage. Julian's cold dismissal. She checked her phone. 6 a.m. Aunt Ruby would be waking up for her first round of medication. Nia sent a quick text to Beverly, asking for an update. The reply came immediately, Ruby had slept well and was asking about Nia. Nia showered in the marble bathroom attached to her room, feeling small and out of place surrounded by such luxury. She dressed in jeans and a bright green sweater, one of the few colorful items she owned. If her surroundings were going to be cold and gray, at least she could add some warmth through her clothing. The kitchen was empty when she emerged. She found coffee already made and still hot. Gloria must have been here already, moving through the penthouse like a ghost. Nia poured herself a cup and sat at the counter, unsure what to do with herself. The signed contract was gone. Someone had taken it, probably Gloria. The deal was official now. Nia heard footsteps and looked up to see Julian entering the kitchen. He wore workout clothes and was slightly sweaty as if he had been to the gym. He nodded at her briefly and poured his own coffee. "I have meetings all day," he said without preamble. "Feel free to explore the building. There's a pool and fitness center on the 10th floor. The doorman's name is Arthur. He'll help you if you need anything." "Thank you," Nia said. Julian's eyes flicked to her briefly, then away. "You don't need to thank me for basic information. I was raised to be polite," Nia replied, keeping her voice even. Something flickered across Julian's face, too quick to identify. "I'll be home late tonight. There's food in the refrigerator." He left before Nia could respond, taking his coffee with him. Nia spent the morning organizing her belongings and exploring her new space. Her bedroom had a small desk by the window and she set up her laptop there. She had been taking online classes in music education, hoping to one day teach. That dream had been on hold while she worked multiple jobs to help with Aunt Ruby's bills, but maybe now she could resume. Around noon, Gloria appeared. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and efficient movements. "Mrs. Bradford," she said warmly. "I'm Gloria. I maintain the penthouse. Please call me Nia," Nia said immediately. Gloria smiled. "Mr. Bradford prefers formality, but I'll remember that for when he's not around. Can I get you anything for lunch?" "I can make my own lunch," Nia said. "But thank you. You're different from what I expected," Gloria said thoughtfully. "Mr. Bradford usually prefers? Well, never mind. It's not my place." "What did you expect?" Nia asked. Gloria hesitated, then seemed to decide honesty was best. "Someone colder. Someone who matched him. But you seem kind." "Is he always so?" Nia trailed off, unsure how to describe Julian without being rude. "Guarded," Gloria supplied. "Yes. Since his father died he's been like that. He was only 17. It changed him." Nia thought about what Patricia had said. About knowing Nia's mother. About Julian not being as cold as he seemed. Maybe there was more to this story than she understood. That afternoon, Nia decided to visit the children's hospital where she had been volunteering. She took the subway rather than calling for Julian's driver, needing the normalcy. The pediatric ward was on the 3rd floor, and the nurses greeted her with warm smiles. "Nia, we missed you last week," Nurse Helen said. "I had a lot going on," Nia replied. "But I'm back now." She spent 3 hours with the children, singing songs and playing simple instruments. Music therapy was proven to help with pain management and emotional well-being. Nia had discovered her gift for this work by accident 2 years ago when she had been visiting a friend's sick daughter. The girl had been crying from pain, and Nia had started singing softly. Within minutes, the child had calmed, focusing on the music instead of her discomfort. One little boy, Timothy, had been particularly sad today. He was 6 years old and fighting leukemia. His mother worked long hours and couldn't visit as often as she wanted. Nia sat with him and sang his favorite songs until he fell asleep smiling. "You're an angel," Timothy's mother said when she arrived later. She looked exhausted, her work uniform wrinkled. "He talks about you all the time." "He's a special kid," Nia said. "So strong. I wish I could afford music therapy for him," the mother said wistfully. "The doctors say it would help, but insurance doesn't cover it." Nia's heart ached. She thought about the money sitting in her bank account, the money Julian had transferred as part of their agreement. "Let me see what I can arrange," she said impulsively. She stayed at the hospital until nearly 7, losing track of time. When she finally headed back to the penthouse, the sun was setting. She let herself in quietly, not sure if Julian was home yet. Music drifted from somewhere in the apartment. Not recorded music, but something live and beautiful. A piano. Nia followed the sound to a room she hadn't noticed before, a study or library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a grand piano by the window. Julian sat at the piano, his fingers moving across the keys with surprising grace. He was playing Chopin, the notes melancholy and complex. His eyes were closed, his usual coldness replaced with something that looked almost like pain. Nia stood frozen in the doorway, afraid to interrupt. This was a side of Julian she hadn't imagined. The man who had treated their wedding like a chore was pouring emotion into this music, revealing depths he clearly tried to hide. The piece ended. Julian's hands stilled on the keys. For a moment he sat motionless. Then Nia's phone rang, shattering the silence. Julian's head snapped up. He saw her standing there and his expression shuttered immediately, the emotion draining away. "How long have you been standing there?" "I'm sorry," Nia said, fumbling with her phone to silence it. "I heard the music. I didn't mean to intrude." "This room is private," Julian said coldly, standing from the piano bench. "Stay out of it." He brushed past her and disappeared down the hallway. Nia heard his bedroom door close firmly. She stood in the study, feeling like she had witnessed something important but couldn't quite understand what. The piano gleamed in the fading light, and sheet music sat on the stand. She stepped closer and saw that the pages were worn as if played many times. Her phone rang again. Aunt Ruby's number. Nia answered quickly. "Hey baby girl," Ruby's voice was weak but warm. "How's married life?" "It's an adjustment," Nia said carefully. "How are you feeling?" "Better. The new treatment is helping. The doctor says if this keeps up, I might be in remission in a few months." Tears sprang to Nia's eyes. "That's wonderful news." "It's because of you," Ruby said. "Because of what you sacrificed." "It's not a sacrifice if it saves you," Nia said firmly. They talked for a while longer about nothing and everything. When they hung up, Nia felt more centered. This was why she was here. This was worth it. She made herself dinner in the huge kitchen, a simple pasta that felt humble in such a grand space. Julian didn't emerge from his room. Nia ate alone, then cleaned up and returned to her own bedroom. She couldn't stop thinking about the music, about the emotion she had seen on Julian's face, about the way his coldness had cracked for just a moment. Maybe Patricia was right. Maybe there was more to Julian Bradford than he wanted anyone to see. Nia opened her laptop and searched for information about Julian's father. Articles appeared immediately. Bradford Sr. had been a philanthropist as well as a businessman. He had donated to music programs and arts education. He had died in a car accident when Julian was 17, leaving the company to his mother, Patricia, who had guided it until Julian was old enough to take over. There was a photo of Bradford Sr. at a charity concert. He was standing with a woman in an elegant red dress, both of them smiling. Nia squinted at the screen. The woman looked familiar. Her heart stopped. It was her mother. The caption read, "Bradford Enterprises founder with opera singer Lorraine Thompson at the annual Music for Youth fundraiser." Nia stared at the photo, her mind racing. Patricia had said she knew Nia's mother. But this looked like more than casual acquaintance. They looked like friends. She searched for more information but found little. Her mother had died when Nia was 8, her career cut short by illness. Nia's memories of her were fragmented. A beautiful voice, warm hugs, the smell of jasmine perfume. Aunt Ruby never talked much about those days. She said it was too painful, that Lorraine had been her baby sister and losing her had broken something in Ruby that never fully healed. Nia needed answers. But how could she ask without revealing that she had been digging into the past? She closed her laptop and prepared for bed. Through the walls, she could hear Julian moving around in his room. She wondered if he ever had trouble sleeping. If the coldness he projected was armor protecting something vulnerable underneath. The thought kept her awake long into the night. Around midnight, Nia gave up on sleep. She pulled on a robe and padded quietly to the balcony off the living room. The city sparkled below, still alive even at this hour. She began to hum, then to sing softly. An old spiritual Aunt Ruby used to sing when Nia was small. The words were about hope and perseverance, about making it through the dark night to see the morning. Nia's voice grew stronger as she lost herself in the music. She didn't hear the door open behind her. Didn't sense Julian standing in the shadows listening. He had been working in his office when he heard her voice. At first he thought it was a recording, the sound too pure and beautiful to be real. But when he followed it, he found Nia on the balcony, her face tilted toward the stars, singing with her whole heart. Julian stood transfixed. He had made assumptions about his contracted wife. Assumptions about her education, her refinement, her value. But this voice was extraordinary. Nia finished the song and stood in silence for a moment. Then she turned to go back inside and froze. Julian stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry," Nia said immediately. "I didn't mean to disturb you." Where did you learn to sing like that? Julian asked. His voice was different than usual. Softer. Almost curious. My mother taught me, Nia said. She was an opera singer. Before she got sick. Lorraine Thompson, Julian said. Nia's eyes widened. You knew her? I remember her, Julian said carefully. My father brought me to one of her performances when I was young. She was exceptional. They stood looking at each other, and for the first time, something like understanding passed between them. You play beautifully, Nia offered. I heard you earlier. I'm sorry for interrupting. Julian's jaw tightened. My father taught me. He said music was important. That it connected people in ways business never could. He sounds like a good man, Nia said. He was, Julian replied simply. The moment stretched between them, fragile and new. Then Julian seemed to remember himself. The shutters came back down. Try to keep the noise down at night. Some of us have work in the morning. He turned and left before Nia could respond. But as she returned to her room, Nia felt something had shifted. The wall between them had developed a crack. And maybe, just maybe, light could get through. The next 2 weeks fell into a routine. Julian left early for work and returned late. Nia volunteered at the hospital, explored the city, and tried to make the cold penthouse feel a bit more like home. They barely spoke beyond basic pleasantries. But small things began to change. One morning, Nia found fresh flowers in the kitchen. When she asked Gloria about them, the housekeeper smiled and said, Mr. Bradford mentioned you seem to like color. He asked me to pick some up. Another day, Nia came home from the hospital to find a package waiting for her. Inside was a high-quality portable keyboard with a note. For your work with the children. No signature, but she knew who had sent it. She wanted to thank him, but Julian was already gone when she woke and asleep when she returned. Or pretending to be asleep. It was hard to tell. Nia started bringing the keyboard to the hospital. The children loved it. Timothy, the 6-year-old with leukemia, was making progress with his treatment. His mother cried when she heard him laughing and singing along with Nia. You've given him hope, the mother said. How can I ever thank you? Just watch him get better, Nia replied, meaning it. On Friday afternoon, Gloria mentioned that Patricia Bradford was coming for dinner. Mr. Bradford asked me to tell you to be home by 6, she said. He wants you both there when his grandmother arrives. Nia agreed, though her stomach twisted with nervousness. This would be the first time she and Julian would spend an extended period together, pretending to be a real couple. She chose her outfit carefully, a royal blue dress that had been her mother's. Aunt Ruby had saved a few of Lorraine's belongings, and this dress was one of them. It fit perfectly, and when Nia looked in the mirror, she saw her mother's eyes looking back at her. Julian was already in the living room when Nia emerged from her bedroom. He wore dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, his tie loosened slightly. He looked up when she entered, and something flickered across his face before he could hide it. You look. He paused, seeming to search for words. That dress is perfect. It was my mother's, Nia said quietly. Julian's expression softened imperceptibly. She had good taste. The doorbell rang before Nia could respond. Julian moved to answer it, and Patricia Bradford swept in wearing an elegant maroon pantsuit and carrying a bottle of wine. My darlings, Patricia said warmly, kissing them each on the cheek. Let me look at you both. Julian, you need to eat more. You're too thin. And Nia, oh my dear, you're absolutely glowing. Nia couldn't help but smile. Patricia had a warmth that filled whatever room she entered. They settled in the dining room. Gloria had prepared a beautiful meal of roasted chicken, vegetables, and homemade bread. Patricia insisted on hearing all about Nia's volunteer work. Music therapy is so important, Patricia said. My husband, Julian's grandfather, used to say that music healed what medicine couldn't reach. My mother believed that too, Nia said. She would perform at hospitals and nursing homes whenever she could. Yes, Patricia said, her eyes distant. Lorraine was always generous with her gift. Even when her own career was struggling, she made time for others. Julian was watching his grandmother closely. You never told me you knew Nia's mother. I didn't know you had married Lorraine's daughter until after the arrangements were made, Patricia said. I chose Nia because her aunt's medical records came across my desk. I sponsor a charity that helps families with medical debt. When I saw Lorraine Thompson's name listed as Nia's mother, I knew it was fate. Fate, Julian repeated, his tone skeptical. Yes, fate, Patricia said firmly. Your father and Lorraine were very close. Did you know that? Nia leaned forward. How close? Patricia set down her fork. They met at a music conservatory. Your mother was a student and Bradford was there visiting a friend. He was so moved by her voice that he decided to help fund her career. He became her patron, paid for her to study in Europe, and helped arrange her first major performances. I never knew that, Nia whispered. Lorraine was on the verge of international success, Patricia continued. She was about to sign with a major opera house in Vienna. And then Bradford died. The family lawyer, Harold Grimes, was supposed to transfer the remaining funds in your mother's trust. But he claimed the money was gone, that Bradford had spent it before his death. Julian's expression hardened. Grimes? Yes, Patricia said. I've always suspected he stole it, but I had no proof. Your mother tried to continue on her own, but without financial backing, the doors that had been opened suddenly closed. She came back to the States, took whatever work she could find. And then she got sick. Nia felt tears threatening. She died thinking she had failed. No, Patricia said gently, reaching for Nia's hand. She died knowing she had given the world beautiful music and a beautiful daughter. She never considered herself a failure. Why didn't you help her? Julian asked his grandmother. I tried, Patricia said, and for the first time Nia heard pain in her voice. I reached out, offered money, offered connections. But Lorraine was proud. She said she wouldn't take charity. She said she would make her own way. The table fell silent. Nia absorbed this information, trying to reconcile it with the fragments of memory she had. She remembered her mother working constantly, remembered the small apartment they lived in, remembered Aunt Ruby moving in to help when Lorraine got too sick to care for Nia alone. That's why you arranged this marriage, Julian said slowly. You wanted to help Lorraine's daughter. Partially, Patricia admitted. But also because I believe you two are better together than apart. You, Julian, have become too hard. Too focused on business and profit. And Nia, from what I've learned about you, you give too much of yourself away. You need someone to care for you as much as you care for others. You balance each other. Grandmother, Julian said warningly. I'm old, Patricia said with a small smile. I'm allowed to meddle. Besides, I won't be around forever. I want to know you're not alone. The rest of dinner was lighter, with Patricia telling stories about Julian as a child. Nia learned that he had been shy and bookish, that he had wanted to be a teacher before his father died and responsibility forced him to take over the family business. After dinner, Patricia asked Nia to play something on the piano in Julian's study. I'd love to hear Lorraine's daughter perform, she said. Nia hesitated, remembering Julian's reaction last time. But he nodded stiffly, and they moved to the study together. Nia sat at the piano, her fingers finding the keys. She played one of her mother's favorite pieces, a Chopin nocturne. The notes flowed from her fingers with a life of their own. When she finished, Patricia was crying softly. Your mother played that at her final performance, she said. I was there. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. And you play it just as beautifully. Julian stood by the window, his back to them. His shoulders were tense, his hands clenched at his sides. Patricia gathered her things soon after, kissing them both goodbye. Give each other a chance, she whispered to Nia. He's worth it even if he doesn't believe it himself. After Patricia left, Nia and Julian stood in the living room, the weight of revelations hanging between them. I didn't know about my father and your mother, Julian said finally. I wish I had. I wish I could have done something. It's not your fault, Nia said. Grimes is still our family lawyer, Julian said, his voice hard. If he stole from your mother, if he's the reason she struggled. We don't know that for certain, Nia said, though her heart wanted to believe it. I'm going to find out, Julian promised. If he did this, I'll make sure he pays. He looked at Nia directly, then really looked at her. You deserved better than this arrangement, he said quietly. You deserved a real proposal, a real wedding, a husband who chose you because he loved you. Life rarely gives us what we deserve, Nia said. But we work with what we have. Something like respect crossed Julian's face. You're stronger than I thought. You're kinder than you pretend, Nia countered. They stood looking at each other, and Nia felt the crack in the wall between them widen just a little bit more. The next morning, Julian's assistant called Nia directly. Mrs. Bradford, I need your help, she said urgently. What's wrong? Nia asked. The charity gala is in 3 days. It's Mr. Bradford's biggest event of the year, over 1,000 guests, and the event coordinator just quit. She sent an email this morning saying she's moving to California. We have no one to manage the event. Nia's mind raced. What needs to be done? The assistant, whose name was Rachel, rattled off a list. Final seating arrangements, menu confirmations, entertainment coordination, decorations, registration, and a dozen other details. I can handle the business side, but the creative aspects, I'm not good at that. Mr. Bradford suggested I call you. He did. Nia was surprised. He said you have an eye for these things, Rachel said. Will you help? Nia thought about the enormity of organizing an event for 1,000 people in 3 days. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was impossible. But then she thought about the children at the hospital, about how she had learned to make something beautiful out of limited resources. Yes, she said. I'll help. Rachel sounded relieved. Thank you. I'll send you all the files and contact information. Nia spent the morning reviewing everything. The theme was Music Through the Ages, honoring philanthropic work in arts education. The venue was a grand hotel ballroom. Most of the major components were in place, but 1,000 little details needed attention. She made calls. She negotiated with vendors. She redesigned the seating chart to better reflect the relationships between donors. She worked with the florist to change the decorations from generic elegant to specific to the theme, incorporating musical notes and instruments into the arrangements. By evening she had made significant progress. Julian came home while she was on the phone with the caterer, surrounded by papers and her laptop. He stood in the doorway listening as she smoothly resolved an issue with dietary restrictions. When she hung up, he spoke. Rachel says you've accomplished more in 1 day than the previous coordinator did in 3 weeks. Nia shrugged. I'm used to making things work with limited time and resources. I should have asked you directly, Julian said, instead of having Rachel call. I wasn't sure if you'd want to be involved. I'm happy to help, Nia said simply. Julian sat down across from her. Tell me about your ideas. They spent the next 2 hours going over every detail. Nia showed him her vision for the decorations, her restructured seating plan, her suggestion to include short musical performances throughout the evening rather than just one concert at the end. You have a gift for this, Julian said finally. I like bringing people together, Nia said. Music does that naturally. The rest is just logistics. It's more than that, Julian insisted. You see connections I would miss. You understand what will make people feel welcomed and valued. Nia felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. Thank you. The night of the gala arrived quickly. Nia wore a long red dress she had found at a consignment shop, simple but elegant. She had styled her hair in an updo that showed off her mother's pearl earrings. When she emerged from her room, Julian was waiting in a black tuxedo. He stared at her for a long moment. You look stunning, he said, and this time, there was no coldness in his voice. You look very handsome, Nia replied, meaning it. They rode to the hotel together. Julian's hand rested on the seat between them, and halfway there, Nia gathered her courage and placed her hand near his. He looked down at their hands, then carefully intertwined his fingers with hers. Neither of them spoke, but Nia felt the warmth of that simple touch all the way to her heart. The ballroom was transformed. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above round tables decorated with elegant centerpieces featuring violins and trumpets made of flowers. Musicians were positioned throughout the space, ready to perform. The registration area flowed smoothly as guests arrived. It's perfect, Rachel said when she saw Nia. Thank you so much. Julian introduced Nia to his business associates. She smiled and made conversation, remembering names and details. Several people mentioned how different she was from Julian's usual companions. One older gentleman said approvingly, You've got a good one here, Bradford. Don't mess it up. Partway through the evening, a distinguished man in his 60s approached. Nia Thompson, he said warmly. I can't believe it. You look so much like your mother. I'm sorry, do I know you? Nia asked. Antoine Dubois, he said. I'm a music producer. I worked with your mother early in her career. I heard her final performance. She was brilliant. Thank you, Nia said softly. I heard you singing at the children's hospital last week, Antoine continued. I was visiting my granddaughter. You have your mother's gift. Nia blinked. You heard me? I did. And I have a proposition. The program says there's a gap in tonight's entertainment. The pianist who was supposed to perform canceled. Would you consider singing? Just one song. Nia's heart raced. I couldn't. I'm not prepared. Your mother never needed much preparation, Antoine said. She could walk on stage and captivate an audience within moments. I suspect you're the same. Julian appeared at Nia's side. Everything all right? Mr. Dubois wants me to perform, Nia said, her voice shaking. Julian looked at her carefully. Do you want to? Nia thought about her mother, about all the performances she had given, about the gift she had shared with the world. She thought about the children at the hospital, how music had helped them through their pain. Yes, she said. I want to. 20 minutes later, Nia stood on the small stage at the front of the ballroom. 1,000 people watched her, their conversations quieting. The pianist, one of the musicians hired for the evening, waited for her signal. Nia closed her eyes and thought of her mother. Then she opened her mouth and sang. She had chosen an aria from Puccini's Gianni Schicchi, one of her mother's signatures. The notes soared and dipped, filled with emotion. Nia poured everything into the music, all the love and loss and hope she had been carrying. The ballroom was silent except for her voice and the piano. When she finished, the final note hanging in the air, there was a moment of absolute stillness. Then the applause began. It started slowly and built to a roar. People stood. Some were crying. Nia opened her eyes and saw Julian in the front row. He was standing with the others, but his expression was what caught her attention. He looked amazed, proud, and something else she couldn't quite name. She made her way back to their table in a daze. People stopped her to offer congratulations. Antoine Dubois found her immediately. I want to offer you a recording contract, he said without preamble. I have a studio and connections. With your voice we could create something extraordinary. Nia's mind spun. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Antoine urged. Your mother would want you to share your gift with the world. Nia looked at Julian. He nodded slightly, encouragingly. Yes, Nia said, the word feeling both scary and right. Thank you, yes. Antoine beamed. Perfect. I'll have my lawyers draw up the papers. We'll discuss details next week. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Everyone wanted to talk to Nia, to hear her story, to tell her how moved they were by her performance. Julian stayed close, his hand occasionally touching the small of her back in a gesture of support. When they finally returned to the penthouse late that night, Nia was exhausted but exhilarated. You were incredible, Julian said as soon as they were inside. I had no idea you could sing like that. I've never performed for so many people, Nia admitted. I was terrified. You didn't show it, Julian said. You were confident and beautiful and amazing. They stood looking at each other in the dim living room. The walls between them had crumbled further. What remained felt fragile but hopeful. Thank you for encouraging me, Nia said softly. I almost said no. I'm glad you didn't, Julian replied. The world deserves to hear you. He reached out and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was tender, intimate. Julian, Nia whispered. I know, he said, his voice rough. I know this was supposed to be business. I know we have a contract. But I can't. I don't. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I need time to think. This isn't what I expected. He left quickly, disappearing into his room before Nia could respond. She stood alone, her heart pounding. Everything was changing. The arrangement that was supposed to be simple and cold was becoming complicated and warm. And for the first time since signing that contract, Nia allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this could become something real. The week following the gala brought significant changes. Antoine Dubois scheduled recording sessions. Major music publications wanted interviews. Nia's phone rang constantly with offers and opportunities. But the most important change was in her relationship with Julian. They began having dinner together most evenings, sharing details about their days. Julian asked about her recording sessions and seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts on music. Nia learned about his work, the pressures of running a major company, his efforts to expand the charitable aspects of Bradford Enterprises. The coldness between them was thawing, replaced by something tentative but growing. One Saturday, Patricia called and asked if Nia could help her organize some old family photographs. Julian was at the office, so Nia took a car to Patricia's estate. The Bradford family home was a large traditional house surrounded by gardens. Patricia greeted Nia warmly and led her to a study filled with boxes. I'm trying to create a family history album for Julian, Patricia explained. But I'm overwhelmed by the sheer volume of materials. Would you help me sort through them? Of course, Nia said. They spent hours going through photographs, letters, and memorabilia. Patricia shared stories about Julian's father, about his grandfather, about the family's history in the city. It was clear she loved her grandson deeply and worried about his tendency to isolate himself. He's been different since you came into his life, Patricia said. Softer. More like the boy he was before his father died. I think he's just getting used to having someone around, Nia said modestly. It's more than that, Patricia insisted. You challenge him. You don't let him hide behind his coldness. Nia found herself blushing. She didn't know how to explain what was happening between her and Julian. The way their arrangement was becoming something neither of them had anticipated. Late in the afternoon, Nia opened a box from the back of the closet. Inside were photographs from a music conservatory. She pulled them out carefully, examining each one. Then she froze. The photograph showed a young Bradford Sr. standing with a beautiful woman in her 20s. They were both smiling at the camera, arms around each other's shoulders. Behind them, a building with a sign, Vienna Conservatory of Music. The woman was Lorraine Thompson, Nia's mother. But that wasn't what made Nia's heart stop. It was the date written on the back of the photo, June 1998. Nia did quick math in her head. She had been born in November 1999, which meant, Patricia, Nia said, her voice shaking. When exactly did Bradford Sr. and my mother know each other? Patricia came over and looked at the photograph. Her face went pale. Oh, she said softly. Oh no. What does this mean? Nia asked. Patricia sat down heavily. I think we need to call Julian. Julian arrived within an hour. He looked between his grandmother and Nia, seeing their distress. What's wrong? Patricia handed him the photograph. Julian studied it, confusion crossing his face. That's my father and Nia's mother, he said. I don't understand. Look at the date, Patricia said quietly. Julian flipped the photo over. Nia watched his face as understanding dawned, followed by shock. No, he said. I think we need to know the truth, Patricia said. I need to tell you both something I should have shared years ago. They sat in Patricia's living room, the photograph on the coffee table between them. Patricia looked older suddenly, the weight of secrets showing on her face. Bradford and Lorraine were close, Patricia began. Very close. He sponsored her career, yes, but it became more than that. They fell in love. Nia felt tears starting. Why didn't they get married? Bradford was already engaged to me, Patricia said simply. Our marriage was arranged by our families, a business merger disguised as a love match. By the time he met Lorraine, he was locked into obligations he couldn't break without destroying both our families financially. But he loved her, Julian said. He did, Patricia confirmed. And I knew. I've always known. How did you live with that? Nia whispered. Because I loved him too, Patricia said. And he tried to be a good husband to me. He never broke his vows. When he found out Lorraine was pregnant, he wanted to leave everything to be with her. But she refused. She said she wouldn't let him destroy his family and business. She went to Europe alone. I was born in Europe, Nia said slowly. Aunt Ruby always said Mom needed a fresh start. Patricia nodded. Bradford sent money every month. He paid for the best doctors, the best care. He wanted to be part of your life, but Lorraine said it would be too complicated, too painful for everyone. She agreed to let him fund her career instead, letting the world think it was pure patronage. Then he died, Julian said, his voice tight. And Harold Grimes saw an opportunity, Patricia said. He knew about the payments. He knew about the trust Bradford had set up for Lorraine and for you, Nia. So he stole it. He told me the money was gone, that Bradford had spent it on bad investments before his death. By the time I realized something was wrong, Lorraine had disappeared. She came back to the States and I lost track of her. The room was silent except for the ticking of a grandfather clock. Are you saying, Nia said carefully, that Bradford Sr. might have been my father? I don't know for certain, Patricia said. Lorraine never confirmed it. But the timing, the resemblance. I've wondered for years. Nia looked at Julian. If this was true, if Bradford Sr. was her father, then she and Julian were half-siblings, Julian finished her thought, his face ashen. We don't know that, Patricia said quickly. Lorraine might have had another relationship. The only way to know for certain would be a DNA test, but Bradford is gone and so is Lorraine. What about old samples? Nia asked. Hair, blood, anything? Patricia's eyes lit up. Bradford's doctor might have kept medical records. If there are samples. She made calls immediately. Within days they had arranged for testing. A strand of Bradford's hair from his medical file was compared to Nia's DNA. The results took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of Nia and Julian carefully avoiding each other, both terrified of what the truth might be. Finally, Patricia called them both to her home. They sat in the same living room where they had found the photograph. Patricia held an envelope in her hands. Whatever this says, she told them, you are both important to me. That doesn't change. She opened the envelope and read the results. Then she smiled, tears streaming down her face. "You're not related," she said. "Bradford Sr. is not your biological father, Nia." The relief was overwhelming. Nia felt like she could breathe for the first time in 2 weeks. Across the room, Julian's shoulders sagged. "But," Patricia continued, "the timeline suggests your mother was pregnant when she left for Europe. She must have had another relationship before or during her time with Bradford. Someone we don't know about." "It doesn't matter," Nia said. "Whoever he was, I never knew him. Aunt Ruby raised me. She's my family. And now we are too," Patricia said firmly. "Regardless of biology. You were important to Bradford, Nia. He cared about you and your mother deeply. That makes you family in my eyes." Julian stood and crossed to Nia. He took her hands in his. "I need to tell you something," he said. "These past 2 weeks, thinking I might have lost you before I ever really had you. It clarified everything." "Julian," Nia whispered. "I've been fighting this," he continued. "Fighting what I feel for you. I told myself it was just the arrangement, just proximity. But it's not. I'm falling for you, Nia. Maybe I have been since I heard you singing that night on the balcony." Nia's heart soared. "I feel the same way. But I need to do this right," Julian said. "I need to prove to you that this is real. That it's not just about the contract or the circumstances." "You don't have to prove anything," Nia said. "Yes, I do," Julian insisted. "You deserve that." Patricia watched them with satisfaction. "I think I'll leave you two alone," she said, standing. "I need to make some calls to the family lawyer. We have business with Harold Grimes to resolve." After she left, Nia and Julian stood close together, hands still intertwined. "I was so scared," Nia admitted. "I was scared we were related, but I was also scared because I realized how much I care about you. How much it would have hurt to lose the possibility of us." "You won't lose me," Julian promised. "Not anymore. Not ever." He pulled her into his arms and Nia rested her head against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we figure this out together," Julian said. "No more hiding. No more pretending this is just business. We see where this goes." "I'd like that," Nia said. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other, letting the relief and hope and new possibilities wash over them. The arrangement that had started as a cold transaction was becoming something beautiful. Something real. Something worth fighting for. And for the first time since signing that contract, Nia believed in happy endings. Patricia wasted no time. The very next day she called a meeting with Julian, Nia, and the company's current legal team. She had already hired a private investigator to dig into Harold Grimes's finances. The investigation revealed a trail of fraud spanning nearly 2 decades. Grimes had been systematically embezzling from Bradford Enterprises and from the charitable trusts Bradford Sr. had established. The amount was staggering, over $8 million. "He's been careful," the investigator explained, spreading documents across the conference table. "Small amounts taken regularly, hidden in accounting complexities. But once we knew what to look for, the pattern became clear." Julian's face was stone as he reviewed the evidence. "Why didn't our audits catch this?" "He was in charge of selecting the auditors," Patricia said quietly. "He chose firms that wouldn't ask too many questions." "He stole from my mother," Nia said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "He stole her future, her career, everything." "Yes," Patricia agreed. "And from you. The trust Bradford set up for you and Lorraine was substantial. If Grimes hadn't stolen it, your mother could have continued her career without financial stress. She could have afforded better medical care when she got sick." The weight of that truth hung heavy in the room. Grimes's theft hadn't just taken money. It might have cost Lorraine Thompson her life. "What do we do now?" Julian asked. "We go to the authorities," Patricia said. "But first we confront him. I want to see his face when he realizes we know." Harold Grimes was a man in his 60s with gray hair and an air of self-importance. He had worked for the Bradford family for 40 years, starting as a junior associate when Bradford Sr. was building the company. He considered himself indispensable. Patricia called him to the penthouse for what she said was an urgent legal matter. He arrived carrying his briefcase expecting a routine meeting. Instead, he found Patricia, Julian, Nia, and the private investigator waiting. Documents covered the dining room table. "Harold," Patricia said coldly, "thank you for coming. Please sit down." Grimes looked around the room, confusion on his face. "What's this about?" "It's about theft," Julian said flatly. "It's about fraud. It's about you destroying people's lives for your own gain. The color drained from Grimes's face. I don't know what you're talking about, he blustered. I've served this family loyally for decades. You've stolen from this family for decades, Patricia corrected. We have proof. Bank records, false invoices, diverted funds. All of it points to you. The investigator placed a thick folder in front of Grimes. This is just a summary. We have much more. Grimes's hands shook as he opened the folder. Nia watched his face as he realized the evidence was irrefutable. She felt no satisfaction in his fear, only sadness for what his actions had cost. The trust you stole from my father, Julian said, his voice hard. It was meant for Lorraine Thompson and her daughter. Do you remember them? Grimes looked at Nia for the first time, recognition dawning. You're Lorraine's girl. I am, Nia said. Your mother was very talented, Grimes said weakly, as if this somehow excused what he had done. My mother died struggling, Nia replied. She died thinking she had failed, that she wasn't good enough. But she wasn't the failure. You were. I had debts, Grimes said, attempting to defend himself. Bad investments. I was going to pay it back. You had 20 years, Patricia said. You never intended to pay anything back. You just kept taking. What happens now? Grimes asked, his voice small. Now we turn everything over to the district attorney, Julian said. You'll be arrested and charged. The company will cooperate fully with the investigation. Please, Grimes said, suddenly desperate. I'll return what I can. I'll sell my house, my investments. Just don't do this. It's too late for deals, Patricia said. You made your choices. Now you face the consequences. The police arrived within the hour. Grimes was led away in handcuffs, his blustering replaced by silence. The investigator estimated it would take months to fully trace all the stolen funds, but much of it could be recovered. After everyone left, Nia, Julian, and Patricia sat in the penthouse living room, exhausted. I wish this brought me more satisfaction, Nia said quietly. But it doesn't change what happened to my mother. No, Patricia agreed. But it prevents him from hurting anyone else. And it gives you some justice, however small. What happens to the money? Nia asked. Half belongs to the company, Patricia said. Half belongs to you. That was always Bradford's intention. Nia shook her head. I don't want it. Nia, Julian said gently. You deserve this. It's yours by right. It feels wrong, Nia insisted. My mother never wanted handouts. She wanted to earn her success. This isn't a handout, Patricia said firmly. This is what was stolen from you. Taking it back isn't charity. It's justice. Nia thought about Aunt Ruby, about the medical bills that were mounting despite the money Julian had provided. She thought about the children at the hospital, about Timothy and others like him who needed music therapy but couldn't afford it. If I accept it, Nia said slowly, I want to use it to create something. Something that would honor my mother's memory. What did you have in mind? Julian asked. A foundation, Nia said, the idea forming as she spoke. One that provides music education and therapy to children who can't afford it. One that sponsors talented students who need financial support. One that does what your father tried to do for my mother. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. Bradford would have loved that. We could match your contribution, Julian offered. Make it even bigger. Yes, Patricia agreed. The Bradford Thompson Foundation. A legacy for both our families. Nia felt warmth spreading through her chest. This felt right. This felt like taking something terrible and transforming it into something beautiful. There's something else, Julian said, looking at Nia. I want to find whoever embezzled from other trusts Grimes managed. I want to make sure everyone gets their money back. That's very generous, Nia said. It's the right thing to do, Julian replied simply. My father built this company on integrity. Grimes corrupted that. We need to fix it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The investigation expanded as more of Grimes's thefts came to light. Several other families had been victimized, including some who had lost loved ones because they couldn't afford medical care. Julian personally contacted each of them, apologizing and arranging restitution. The media covered the story extensively. Julian could have stayed silent, protected the company's reputation. Instead, he was transparent about the fraud and his family's commitment to making things right. Public opinion, initially skeptical, shifted to support as people saw his genuine efforts. Through it all, Nia and Julian grew closer. They worked together on the foundation plans, spending hours discussing how to structure it, how to reach the children who needed it most, how to ensure the money would be used effectively. Late one night they sat on the penthouse balcony looking out at the city lights. They had been working on grant proposals for hours and needed a break. "I never thought my life would look like this," Nia said softly. 3 months ago I was serving coffee at a diner and visiting Aunt Ruby every evening. Now I'm planning a foundation and recording an album and married to—" She trailed off, suddenly shy. "Married to someone who adores you," Julian finished. "That's what you are, Nia. You're married to someone who can't imagine his life without you anymore." Nia turned to face him. "Julian." He took her hands in his. "I know our arrangement still has months left before the contract ends. I know we agreed to separate after a year. But I don't want that." "Neither do I," Nia whispered. "I want to do this properly," Julian said. "I want to court you the way you deserve. I want to take you on real dates and buy you flowers and show you how much you mean to me. And then, when the year is up, I want to ask you to marry me again. For real this time. With love instead of contracts." Tears spilled down Nia's cheeks. "Yes." "I haven't asked yet," Julian said with a small smile. "I know," Nia said. "But the answer is yes. To all of it. To dates and flowers and real proposals. Yes." Julian pulled her close and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and full of promise. Nia felt her heart expanding, making room for this man who had surprised her at every turn. When they pulled apart, they stayed close, foreheads touching. "Thank you," Julian said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing past my walls. For being patient when I was cold. For showing me that love doesn't have to be a business arrangement. It can be real." "You did the same for me," Nia said. "You showed me I deserve good things. You showed me it's okay to accept help. You gave me my dreams back." They stayed on the balcony until late, talking about the future, making plans. For the first time, those plans included each other not out of obligation but out of genuine desire. The arrangement that had brought them together was becoming irrelevant. What mattered now was what they were choosing to build together. Harold Grimes's trial dominated local news for weeks. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence of his decades-long fraud. Former clients testified about how his theft had impacted their lives. The defense tried to portray him as a man who had made mistakes under pressure, but the sheer scale of his crimes made that narrative impossible to maintain. Nia attended every day of the trial, sitting in the gallery beside Julian. She needed to see this through, to witness justice for her mother. Aunt Ruby was too weak to attend, but Beverly sent daily updates to her. On the witness stand, Patricia testified about her husband's intentions for the trust he had established for Lorraine and Nia. She described discovering the theft and her years of suspicion. "I failed Lorraine," Patricia said, her voice breaking. "I should have acted sooner. I should have pushed harder for answers. But I allowed myself to believe Harold's lies because investigating would have been difficult and embarrassing for the family. I chose comfort over truth and Lorraine paid the price." The prosecutor was gentle with her. "You're not on trial here, Mrs. Bradford." "Perhaps I should be," Patricia replied. "My inaction enabled his crimes to continue." The defense attorney tried to use Patricia's statement to shift blame, suggesting the Bradford family had been negligent in their oversight. But the judge shut that down quickly. "The only person responsible for Mr. Grimes's choices is Mr. Grimes himself," the judge said firmly. Julian testified about the impact of the theft on the company and on his family's charitable work. He was calm and factual, but Nia could see the anger simmering beneath his composed exterior. The defense attorney made a mistake in cross-examination. "Isn't it true, Mr. Bradford, that you've developed a personal relationship with Miss Thompson? That your testimony might be biased by romantic feelings?" "My testimony is based on facts," Julian replied evenly. "Bank records and audits don't care about emotions. But yes, I care deeply about Nia. I care about the life her mother should have had. I care about the years they lost struggling because Harold Grimes stole what was rightfully theirs. If that's bias, then I'll own it." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge called for order. When it was Nia's turn to testify, she felt every eye in the courtroom on her. The prosecutor asked her to describe her childhood, her mother's struggles, her aunt's sacrifices. "My mother worked herself to exhaustion," Nia said, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "She took any job she could find. She sang at weddings and funerals and small clubs. She was so talented, but doors kept closing. I used to think it was because she wasn't good enough. But that wasn't true. It was because the money that should have supported her career was stolen." "How did your mother's financial struggles affect her health?" the prosecutor asked. "She delayed seeing doctors because she couldn't afford them," Nia said. When she finally went, the cancer was advanced. The treatments she needed were too expensive. We lost our apartment. We moved in with my aunt. Mom died when I was 8, surrounded by medical debt and broken dreams. The defense attorney tried to argue that Lorraine's cancer would have killed her regardless of financial circumstances. Nia felt rage rising but kept her composure. "We'll never know that," she said calmly, "because Harold Grimes stole her chance to find out. He stole her ability to fight with every resource available. He stole years of my life with my mother because she was working constantly instead of spending time with me. He stole my mother's dignity and peace of mind. Those things can't be quantified, but they matter." The courtroom was silent when she finished. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. They found Harold Grimes guilty on all counts: fraud, embezzlement, and theft. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to all affected parties. As the judge read the sentence, Grimes sat motionless. He looked older, diminished. Nia felt no triumph, only a quiet sense of completion. This chapter was closed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Julian put his arm around Nia protectively as they made their way to the car. Patricia handled the media, giving a brief statement about justice being served and the family's commitment to supporting victims of financial crime. Back at the penthouse, the three of them collapsed in relief. "It's over," Patricia said. "Finally over. What happens now with the restitution?" Nia asked. "The court will liquidate Grimes's assets," Julian explained. "His house, investments, everything. Those funds will be divided among his victims based on how much he stole from each. We estimate you'll recover about 60% of what your mother was owed." 60%, Nia repeated. It was a significant amount, life-changing. But it also meant 40% was gone forever, likely spent long ago on Grimes's lifestyle. "It's not perfect," Patricia acknowledged, "but it's something. And combined with the money we're contributing, the foundation will be well-funded." "I want to visit Aunt Ruby," Nia said suddenly. "I want to tell her in person." They drove to the nursing facility where Ruby was now staying. The cancer treatments had been successful and she was in remission, but she needed round-the-clock care. The facility was bright and clean with attentive staff. Julian had arranged for Ruby to have a private room with a view of the gardens. Ruby was sitting up in bed when they arrived, looking thin but alert. Her face lit up when she saw them. "Baby girl," she said, reaching for Nia. "And Mr. Bradford. And Mrs. Bradford Sr. What brings all of you here?" "We wanted to share some news," Nia said, sitting on the edge of the bed. She explained everything: the trial, the verdict, the restitution. Ruby listened with tears streaming down her face. "Lorraine can rest now," she said finally. "She can rest knowing the truth is out. Knowing you're taken care of. Knowing her dreams weren't failures." "I wish she was here," Nia said. "She is," Ruby assured her, touching Nia's heart. "She's right here. And she's so proud of you. The foundation you're creating, that's her legacy. That's what she always wanted, to help children discover the joy of music." They stayed with Ruby for hours, sharing stories and making plans. Ruby insisted on being part of the foundation's advisory board. "I may be sick, but I'm not dead yet," she said with a spark of her old spirit. "I can still be useful." As they were leaving, Ruby called Nia back. Julian and Patricia continued to the car, giving them privacy. "That man loves you," Ruby said quietly. "Really loves you." "I know," Nia replied. "I love him too." "Then forget about contracts and arrangements," Ruby advised. "Forget about timelines and obligations. Love him fully, baby girl. Love him the way your mama loved your daddy, whoever he was. Love him the way I loved your uncle before he passed. Love doesn't wait for perfect circumstances." "I will," Nia promised. That evening, Julian suggested they go out for dinner. "A real date," he said. "Something we should have done months ago." He took her to a small French restaurant, intimate and romantic. They shared wine and conversation, and for the first time, it felt completely natural. No awkwardness, no obligation, just two people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. "I have something for you," Julian said as dessert arrived. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Nia's heart skipped. "Julian." "It's not what you think," he said quickly. "Not yet. But soon, I promise." He opened the box to reveal a delicate necklace with a pendant in the shape of a musical note. "This belonged to my father. He commissioned it for someone special. I think he meant it for your mother, but he died before he could give it to her. I want you to have it, as a promise that the past is resolved and the future is ours." Nia's eyes filled with tears. "It's beautiful." Julian stood and moved behind her chair, fastening the necklace around her neck. His fingers lingered on her skin and Nia shivered at the touch. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you," he replied. "For changing my life. For showing me what really matters." They finished dinner slowly, neither wanting the evening to end. On the drive home, Julian held her hand and Nia felt completely content. We're halfway through Nia and Julian's journey. If their story is touching your heart, please subscribe and leave a comment telling us what you think will happen next. Will their love overcome all obstacles? The penthouse felt different when they returned. It had been a cold, impersonal space when Nia first arrived. Now it felt like home. She had added small touches: colorful throw pillows, framed photos, plants on the balcony. Julian had encouraged every change, wanting her to feel comfortable. "Would you like some tea?" Julian asked as they entered. "I'd like to talk," Nia said. "Really talk." They sat on the couch, turned toward each other. "What's on your mind?" Julian asked. "Us," Nia said. "This arrangement. I know we agreed to wait until the contract year is up before making any real decisions. But I don't want to wait anymore." Julian's eyes searched her face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the contract doesn't matter," Nia said. "We can tear it up right now and it wouldn't change anything. I would still choose to be here. I would still choose you." "Nia," Julian said, his voice rough with emotion. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," she replied. Julian pulled her close, cradling her face in his hands. "I love you. I think I've loved you since that night I heard you singing. I just didn't know how to admit it." "I love you too," Nia whispered. "So much." They kissed, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. It was a kiss of promises and possibilities, of two people who had found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and chosen to build something real. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. "So what happens now?" Nia asked. "Now we live," Julian said simply. "We work on the foundation. We support each other's dreams. We build a life together. Not because a contract says we should, but because we want to." "That sounds perfect," Nia said. They stayed on the couch talking until late, making plans and dreaming. The betrayal that had brought them together was resolved, but what it had created was just beginning. The months following the trial were the happiest of Nia's life. The foundation was taking shape, with offices secured and staff being hired. Nia's music career was flourishing. Antoine had released her first single, and it was climbing the charts. Radio stations played her voice daily. But more than any professional success, what filled Nia with joy was her relationship with Julian. They had torn up the original contract in a small ceremony with just Patricia present. Julian had lit the papers on fire in his office fireplace, and they had all watched the words turn to ash. "Good riddance," Patricia had declared. "Now you're free to build something real." And they were building something real. Julian took Nia on dates, concerts, museums, quiet walks in the park. He brought her flowers every Friday, remembering she had once mentioned loving fresh blooms. He attended every one of her performances, watching from the front row with pride on his face. Nia encouraged Julian to play piano again. He had stopped after his father's death, finding it too painful. But slowly, with Nia's gentle support, he began to play. They started having music nights where Nia would sing and Julian would accompany her. Sometimes Patricia would join them, bringing wine and stories. The Bradford Thompson Foundation officially launched on a sunny Saturday in May. They had secured a beautiful building downtown with practice rooms, a recording studio, and classrooms. Over 100 children were enrolled in the first semester, all receiving free music education and therapy. The opening ceremony was emotional. Aunt Ruby sat in a place of honor, her health improved enough that she could attend. Timothy, the little boy from the hospital, performed a short piano piece he had learned. Parents cried. Teachers smiled. The local news covered it extensively. Nia gave a speech, her voice strong and clear. This foundation exists because of love. Love between two people who dreamed of making music accessible to everyone. Love that transcended obstacles and survived tragedy. Love that refuses to let talent go to waste because of financial barriers. My mother would have been proud of what we're creating here. And I hope we make her proud every single day. The crowd applauded. Julian stood beside her, his hand finding hers. After the ceremony, Antoine approached. I have news, he said. I've been contacted by several major venues. They want you to do a concert tour. 10 cities, 3 months. It's a huge opportunity. Nia's eyes widened. A tour? Sold-out venues in every city, Antoine continued. You'd be performing for thousands of people. This could establish you as a major artist. When would it start? Julian asked, his voice carefully neutral. 2 months, Antoine said. I know it's fast, but the demand is there. We need to act while your popularity is rising. Nia looked at Julian. They had been building their life together, finding their rhythm. 3 months apart felt impossible. Can I think about it? Nia asked Antoine. Of course, he said. But don't take too long. These opportunities don't wait. That night, Nia and Julian talked it through. They sat on their balcony, the place that had become their refuge for important conversations. You should go, Julian said immediately. This is your dream, Nia. You can't pass it up. 3 months is a long time, Nia said. I'll visit whenever I can, Julian promised. And we'll talk every day. Technology exists for a reason. What if things change? Nia asked, voicing her deepest fear. What if the distance is too much? Julian took her face in his hands. Nothing will change. I love you. That doesn't depend on proximity. It depends on choice. And I choose you whether you're here or across the country. You're sure? Nia pressed. I'm sure, Julian said firmly. Besides, I'll be busy with the foundation and the company. The time will pass faster than we think. Nia called Antoine the next day and accepted the tour. The preparations were intense. Rehearsals, costume fittings, promotional interviews. Julian supported her through all of it, never complaining about the time it took away from them. The night before Nia left for the first tour stop, Julian cooked her dinner. He wasn't a great cook and the meal was slightly burned, but Nia loved it anyway. They ate by candlelight, savoring their last evening together for a while. I have something for you, Julian said after dinner. He handed her a small wrapped box. Inside was a vintage compass. So you always find your way back to me, he said. Nia's eyes filled with tears. I will. Always. I know, Julian said, pulling her close. I trust you. I trust us. The tour was exhausting and exhilarating. Nia performed in grand theaters and intimate venues. Audiences sang along to her songs. Critics praised her voice and emotional depth. Every night after performing, she called Julian. Sometimes they talked for hours, sharing the details of their days. Sometimes they just stayed on the line, finding comfort in the connection. Julian visited twice, flying in to watch her perform and staying for long weekends. Those visits were precious, stolen moments of normalcy in the chaos of touring. During one visit to Chicago, they walked along the lakeshore in the early morning. The city was quiet, the water calm. I'm proud of you, Julian said. Watching you on that stage, seeing how you move people with your voice. It's incredible. I miss home, Nia admitted. I miss you. I miss the foundation and our balcony and even Gloria's terrible coffee. Julian laughed. Her coffee is pretty bad. But don't tell her I said that. I won't, Nia promised. How much longer? Julian asked. 6 more weeks, Nia said. Then I'm home for a while. No more tours for at least a year. I can wait 6 weeks, Julian said. But just barely. They kissed as the sun rose over the lake, and Nia felt the truth of their connection. Distance couldn't diminish what they had built. The final performance of the tour was in New York City at Carnegie Hall. It was a dream venue and Nia was both nervous and excited. Julian flew in for the show, bringing Patricia and Aunt Ruby with him. Seeing them all in the audience gave Nia courage. She performed for 2 hours, pouring everything into the music. The standing ovation at the end lasted 10 minutes. People were crying, shouting, applauding until their hands hurt. Backstage, Julian waited with flowers. He swept her into his arms, spinning her around. You were magnificent, he said. Absolutely magnificent. I'm glad it's over, Nia said. I'm glad I'm coming home. About that, Julian said, setting her down. His expression was serious suddenly. What's wrong? Nia asked, fear spiking. Nothing's wrong, Julian said quickly. But I have something I need to do before we go home. Something I've been planning for a while. He led her to a car waiting outside. Patricia and Aunt Ruby were already inside, both wearing knowing smiles. Where are we going? Nia asked. You'll see, Julian said mysteriously. They drove through the city to a building Nia recognized. It was an old concert hall her mother had performed in years ago, before everything fell apart. But the building looked different. Renovated. Beautiful. What is this? Nia asked. Julian helped her out of the car. Come inside. The interior was stunning. The main hall had been completely restored, with new seating and a magnificent stage. But what caught Nia's attention were the blueprints and plans covering the walls. "I bought this building," Julian explained. "I'm turning it into a music academy and performance space. The Thompson Bradford Music Academy expansion. This will be our flagship location, where we can teach students and host performances. Where talented artists who need a chance can showcase their work." Nia's hands flew to her mouth. "Julian. Your mother performed here," Julian continued. "It seems right that her legacy should live on in this space. We'll have scholarships named after her, performances dedicated to her memory. And at the entrance, there will be a plaque honoring both her and my father, the two people who believed in the power of music to change lives." Tears streamed down Nia's face. "This is too much. This is what you deserve," Julian said. "This is what your mother deserved. And this is me showing you that I believe in you and your dreams as much as you believed in mine." He got down on one knee right there in the middle of the empty concert hall. Patricia gasped. Aunt Ruby let out a small cry. "Nia Bradford," Julian said, pulling out a ring box. "We got married for all the wrong reasons. But I want to marry you again for all the right ones. Because you're brave and kind and talented. Because you make me want to be better. Because I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me? Really marry me? Choose me not because of a contract or obligation, but because you love me." "Yes," Nia said through her tears. "Yes, yes, yes." Julian slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms. They kissed as Patricia and Aunt Ruby cheered, and Nia felt her heart might burst from happiness. This was what her mother had wanted for her. This was the kind of love worth fighting for. This was a happy ending that felt like a new beginning. The months following Julian's proposal were a blur of joy and preparation. They decided on a small wedding, just close friends and family, to be held at the new Music Academy building. Nia wanted it to be meaningful rather than extravagant. The academy renovations progressed quickly. Julian had spared no expense in making the space beautiful and functional. Practice rooms lined the upper floors, each equipped with quality instruments. The main performance hall seated 500, with acoustics designed by leading experts. Nia threw herself into planning the academy's programs. She hired teachers she had met during her tour, talented musicians who shared her passion for education. She designed scholarship programs targeting underserved communities. She created partnerships with schools and hospitals, expanding the music therapy work she had started. Aunt Ruby's health continued to improve. She moved from the nursing facility to an apartment near the penthouse, insisting on independence while accepting help when needed. She became the academy's unofficial grandmother, attending student recitals and offering encouragement. Timothy, the little boy from the hospital, was now in complete remission. His mother enrolled him in the academy where he flourished. Watching him perform with confidence and joy reminded Nia why all of this mattered. One afternoon, 3 weeks before the wedding, Patricia called an urgent meeting. Nia and Julian arrived at her estate to find her looking troubled. "There's something you both need to know," Patricia said. "I've been contacted by a lawyer representing someone who claims to be Nia's father." Nia felt the ground shift beneath her. "What?" "His name is James Morrison," Patricia said. "He's a jazz musician. He says he had a brief relationship with your mother in Vienna, around the time you would have been conceived." Julian reached for Nia's hand. "This could be a scam. People hear about the foundation and the money, and suddenly everyone wants to be related." "That's what I thought too," Patricia said. "But he provided details that match what we know. He knew about Lorraine's connection to Bradford. He knew about the Vienna Conservatory. And he has photographs. Can we meet him?" Nia asked, her voice shaking. "He's in the city," Patricia said. "He's been trying to find you for years, but your aunt moved frequently and kept her whereabouts private. He only found you after the media coverage of the trial." They arranged a meeting for the next day at a quiet cafe. Nia barely slept that night, her mind spinning with questions and possibilities. James Morrison was a man in his late 40s with kind eyes and gentle features. When he saw Nia, his face crumpled with emotion. "You look exactly like your mother," he said softly. The same eyes, the same smile. They sat together and James told his story. He had been a young musician studying in Vienna when he met Lorraine. They had fallen in love quickly, two artists caught up in the romance of music in a foreign city. "We were together for 6 months," James said. "It was the happiest time of my life. But then I got an opportunity to tour with a famous band. I thought it was my big break. I told Lorraine I'd be back in a few months, that we'd continue what we had started. But you didn't come back," Nia said quietly. "I tried," James said, anguish in his voice. But the tour extended. Months turned into a year. By the time I got back to Vienna, Lorraine was gone. No one knew where she went. I searched for years, but she had disappeared. She was pregnant with me, Nia said. I didn't know, James said. If I had known, I would have come back immediately. I would have been there. Why didn't she tell you? Nia asked. Your mother was proud, Patricia interjected gently. And she was in love with Bradford by then. Perhaps she thought it would be easier if James didn't know. Easier for everyone. James pulled out an old photograph. It showed him and Lorraine on a bridge in Vienna, both laughing. They looked young and happy and completely in love. I never forgot her, James said. I married eventually, had a family. But Lorraine was always in my heart. When I heard about her death, I was devastated. I tried to find her daughter, tried to find you, but I had no resources, no connections. What do you want from me? Nia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Nothing, James said immediately. I don't want money or recognition. I just wanted to meet you. To see the woman my daughter became. To tell you that your mother was loved. That you were conceived in love, even if circumstances kept us apart. Nia studied his face, looking for resemblance, looking for connection. She saw pieces of herself in his features. The shape of his nose, the way he gestured when he talked, the intensity in his eyes when discussing music. Do you want a DNA test? She asked. Only if you do, James replied. I already know you're mine. I can feel it. But I understand if you need proof. They talked for hours. James answered every question Nia had. He told her about her mother's dreams, her talents, her kindness. He shared stories Nia had never heard, filling in pieces of her mother's life that had been mysteries. Julian sat quietly beside Nia, offering support without interfering. This was Nia's moment, her choice to make. Finally, as the afternoon wore on, Nia made a decision. I believe you, she said. And I would like you in my life if you're willing. Not as a replacement for the family I have, but as an addition. As someone who knew my mother and can help me understand where I came from. James's eyes filled with tears. I would love that. More than you know. They arranged for a DNA test anyway for legal and medical purposes. The results came back a week later, confirming what they already knew. James Morrison was Nia's biological father. The revelation required adjustment. Nia spent time with James, learning about his life and career. He was a respected jazz musician, still performing regularly. He was married to a woman named Helen, who was warm and welcoming. They had 2 children, which meant Nia had half-siblings. James's family embraced Nia immediately. They invited her to Sunday dinners. They asked about the wedding. They wanted to know everything about her. This is overwhelming, Nia admitted to Julian one night. I went from having just Aunt Ruby to suddenly having a whole extended family. Is it good overwhelming or bad overwhelming? Julian asked. Good, I think, Nia said. Mostly good. Just a lot to process. Take your time, Julian advised. You don't have to figure out all these relationships immediately. James asked if he could walk Nia down the aisle at the wedding. The request made her cry. She had assumed Aunt Ruby would do it or that she would walk alone. I would be honored, James said. But I understand if it's too soon. If you'd prefer someone else. Nia thought about it carefully. She discussed it with Aunt Ruby, who encouraged her to follow her heart. In the end, Nia decided that both James and Aunt Ruby would walk her down the aisle together. You both brought me to this moment, she told them. You both deserve to be part of it. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather. The Academy's main hall was decorated with flowers and candles. White chairs lined the aisle, and soft music played from the piano Julian had donated. Nia wore a simple ivory dress that had belonged to her mother, altered to fit. She carried flowers in her mother's favorite colors, deep red and soft pink. Around her neck, she wore the musical note necklace Julian had given her. Julian waited at the front of the hall, wearing a navy suit with a maroon tie. His best friend Gregory stood beside him as best man. Patricia sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. The music changed and everyone stood. Nia appeared at the back of the hall, flanked by Aunt Ruby and James. Ruby held one arm, James the other, and together they walked Nia toward her future. Julian's eyes never left Nia's face. She could see the love there, the commitment, the promise of everything they had built together. When they reached the front, Ruby and James each kissed Nia's cheek before taking their seats. Julian stepped forward and took Nia's hands. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising love and support and honesty. When the officiant pronounced them married, Julian kissed Nia with such tenderness that half the audience cried. The reception was held in the academy's courtyard. Students from the academy performed. Food was served. Toasts were made. It was joyful and intimate and perfect. During the first dance, Julian held Nia close and whispered, "I love you, Mrs. Bradford." "I love you too," Nia replied. "For real this time." "For real," Julian agreed. As they danced, Nia looked around at the people gathered. Aunt Ruby talking with Patricia. James and his family mingling with Julian's friends. Timothy and the other children running around laughing. This was family. Not defined by blood or contracts but by choice and love and commitment. Later, when they cut the cake, Julian smeared frosting on Nia's nose. She retaliated by getting some in his hair. They laughed like children, forgetting for a moment that they were the center of attention. Patricia gave a toast that had everyone reaching for tissues. "I arranged a marriage for business purposes," she said. "But what grew from that arrangement has restored my faith in love. Julian and Nia have shown us that the best things in life can't be planned or controlled. They emerge from kindness, patience, and the willingness to see each other fully. I'm proud to call them both family." As the evening wound down, Nia and Julian stood together watching the last of their guests leave. The academy was quiet, the candles burning low. "We did it," Nia said. "We did," Julian agreed. "We took an arrangement and turned it into something real." "What happens now?" Nia asked. "Now we live," Julian said. "We run the academy. We make music. We support each other's dreams. We build a life that honors both our families' legacies." "That sounds perfect," Nia said. They locked up the academy together and rode home to their penthouse. But it wasn't just a penthouse anymore. It was home. The place where they had learned to love each other, where walls had come down, where two lonely people had found connection. 6 months after the wedding, life had settled into a beautiful rhythm. The Thompson Bradford Music Academy was thriving, with a waiting list of students eager to enroll. Nia taught classes 3 days a week, focusing on vocal technique and music therapy. The other days she worked on her second album and planned occasional performances. Julian had restructured Bradford Enterprises to focus more on philanthropy and sustainable business practices. He spent less time on pure profit and more time on meaningful impact. His board had been skeptical at first, but the company's reputation improved dramatically, attracting quality employees and loyal customers. The Academy's first major recital was scheduled for a Saturday evening. All the students would perform, showcasing what they had learned. Nia was nervous and excited, wanting everything to be perfect. The day of the recital, the Academy buzzed with activity. Parents helped with decorations. Teachers did final rehearsals. Students practiced in every available room. Nia walked through the halls, checking on everyone. She found Timothy in a practice room, running through his piano piece one more time. "You're going to be great," she told him. "What if I mess up?" Timothy asked. "Then you keep going," Nia said. "Music isn't about perfection. It's about expression. Whatever you play tonight, play it with your whole heart. That's what matters." Timothy nodded, reassured. That evening, the main hall filled with family and friends. Aunt Ruby sat in her usual front row seat. James and his family had driven in from out of town. Patricia arrived early, claiming the best viewing spot. Julian found Nia backstage. "Everything ready?" "I think so," Nia said. "But I'm nervous." "Why?" Julian asked, genuinely curious. "You've performed at Carnegie Hall. This should be easy." "This matters more," Nia explained. "These are our kids, our students, our legacy. I want them to shine." "They will," Julian assured her. "Because they have you as their teacher." The recital was magical. Young voices sang with courage. Small hands played instruments with growing skill. Not everything was perfect, but every performance was heartfelt. The audience applauded each student enthusiastically, understanding that what they were witnessing was hope taking form. Timothy's piano piece brought the house down. He played with confidence and emotion, and when he finished, his mother was openly weeping with pride. For the finale, Nia had arranged a group performance. All the students together, singing a song about dreams and possibilities. Their voices blended beautifully, filling the hall with sound. During the final chorus, Julian moved to stand beside Nia in the wings. He took her hand and squeezed gently. "This is it," he whispered. "This is what we were meant to build." Nia nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. After the recital, there was a reception with refreshments. Parents thanked Nia and the other teachers. Students bounced around excited and proud. Donors discussed expansion possibilities. Antoine Dubois appeared at Nia's elbow. "Beautiful work," he said. "The academy is everything you hoped it would be." "It's more," Nia said. "It's even more." "I have a proposition," Antoine said. "Several major labels have expressed interest in recording an album of children's voices. Classical pieces, spirituals, contemporary songs. I immediately thought of your students. Would you be interested in producing it?" Nia's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" Antoine confirmed. "It would give them professional experience and exposure. And it would further the academy's reputation." "Let me discuss it with Julian and the board," Nia said. "But yes, I'm very interested." They agreed to talk more in the coming weeks. As the reception wound down, Patricia pulled Nia aside. "I have something to tell you," she said, her expression serious. "What's wrong?" Nia asked immediately. "Nothing's wrong," Patricia assured her. "But I've been doing some thinking. I'm getting older and I want to ensure the foundation's future is secure. I'm establishing a permanent endowment, funded by my estate. When I die, the foundation will continue indefinitely." "Patricia," Nia said, tears springing to her eyes. "Don't cry," Patricia said gently. "This makes me happy. Knowing that Bradford's dream and Lorraine's dream will live on long after I'm gone. That's all I want." "You're not going anywhere for a long time," Nia said firmly. "I hope not," Patricia said with a smile. "I have too much life left to live. But it's good to have plans in place." They hugged, and Nia felt overwhelming gratitude for this woman who had seen potential where others saw only desperation. Later that night, back at the penthouse, Nia and Julian collapsed on the couch, exhausted but content. "Today was perfect," Nia said. "Today was extraordinary," Julian corrected. "And it's just the beginning. Antoine's recording project, Patricia's endowment, the expansion plans, we're building something that will outlast us." "I like that idea," Nia said. "Leaving something beautiful behind." Julian was quiet for a moment, then said, "I want to ask you something. How do you feel about children?" Nia's heart skipped. "Our own children?" "Yes," Julian said. "I know we haven't talked about it much. But watching those kids tonight, seeing how you are with them, I want that. I want us to have a family." "I want that too," Nia said softly. "Very much." "Not right away," Julian clarified. "The academy needs you. Your career needs attention. But someday when the time is right." "Someday soon," Nia agreed. They sat together in comfortable silence, imagining the future. A future with children's laughter filling their home. A future of music and love and purpose. The next morning, Nia woke early and went to the balcony. The city stretched below, alive with possibility. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. From desperation and grief to hope and love. Julian joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. They stood together watching the sunrise, two people who had started as strangers and become partners in every sense. "I have a surprise," Julian said. "Remember the building where my father and your mother first met? The conservatory in Vienna?" "Yes," Nia said. "I've been in contact with the current owners," Julian revealed. "They're retiring and want to sell. I thought we could buy it. Turn it into an international branch of the academy. Students could spend semesters there, studying where your mother studied, where music brought our families together." Nia turned in his arms, tears streaming down her face. "You would do that?" "For you, I would do anything," Julian said simply. "Besides, it's a good investment. And it honors both our families' legacies." "Yes," Nia said. "Let's do it. Let's buy the conservatory." They kissed as the sun rose fully, bathing them in golden light. Over the next year, their lives expanded in beautiful ways. The Vienna Conservatory became a reality. Nia released her second album to critical acclaim. Julian's company won awards for corporate social responsibility. The academy grew, adding programs and reaching more children. Aunt Ruby celebrated her 75th birthday surrounded by family. James performed at the party playing jazz while everyone danced. Timothy, now completely healthy and thriving, played a duet with Nia that brought everyone to tears. Patricia remained actively involved in the foundation, though she moved at a slower pace. She spent her days at the academy, reading to children and telling stories about the old days. One autumn evening, Nia and Julian returned to the spot where they had been married. The academy was quiet, the students gone for the day. They walked through the halls hand in hand, remembering. "Do you ever regret it?" Nia asked. "The way we started? The contract and arrangement and coldness?" Julian thought carefully before answering. I regret how I treated you initially. I regret not seeing your value immediately. But I don't regret the circumstances that brought us together. Without that arrangement we might never have met. And that would have been the real tragedy. I feel the same way, Nia said. Sometimes the worst situations lead to the best outcomes. They stood in the main hall where they had exchanged real vows, where they had chosen each other freely. I love you, Julian said, the words as natural as breathing now. I love you too, Nia replied. Always. Outside, the city continued its eternal rhythm. Inside the Thompson Bradford Music Academy, two people who had started as strangers stood together, having built something extraordinary from the most unlikely beginning. Their story wasn't about perfection. It was about second chances and growth. About choosing love when circumstances made it difficult. About believing in possibilities even when logic said they were impossible. It was a story of kindness triumphing over coldness, hope surviving despair, and love proving stronger than any contract could ever be. And it was just beginning. Years from now, children would walk these halls, learning music and discovering their gifts. They would hear the story of Nia and Julian, of two families brought together by tragedy and transformed by love. They would understand that beautiful things can grow from difficult beginnings. The Thompson Bradford legacy would continue, generation after generation, proof that when kindness leads and hope endures, amazing things become possible. Nia and Julian's arranged marriage, born from desperation and obligation, had become a testament to love's transforming power. They had taken a cold transaction and warmed it with genuine affection. They had turned separation into partnership, suspicion into trust, and loneliness into belonging. Standing together in the hall they had built, surrounded by the dream they had made real, they understood a fundamental truth. The best love stories aren't about perfect beginnings. They're about two imperfect people choosing each other again and again, through whatever circumstances life brings. And they would keep choosing each other, every day for the rest of their lives.